She's learned how to carry herself. Life taught her how to be calm when she's hurting, how to smile when she's tired, and how to stay quiet when she's screaming on the inside. She's been through things you'll never hear about, not because they didn't affect her, but because she doesn't want to seem weak. So she became strong, or at least that's what the world sees. But strength doesn't mean she's unbreakable. It just means she knows how to hide the cracks. And behind all that strength, there are places inside her that still ache. Places she won't talk about unless she feels safe. Places that long to be understood, not fixed. She doesn't want pity. She doesn't need saving. What she wants is someone who sees her, not just the woman she presents to the world, but the parts she hides, the softness behind her confidence, the girl who still remembers what it felt like to be ignored, the woman who sometimes wonders if she's still wanted, even after all these years. That's what most men miss. They see the confidence and think she doesn't need reassurance. They see the independence and assume she doesn't want affection. They see her silence and believe she's fine. But there's always more. A sigh when she thinks no one is listening. A pause in her voice when she talks about her past. A look in her eyes when she's quiet for too long. Those are the doorways, emotional ones. They don't look like weakness. They look like quiet strength, like unspoken stories, like soft spots only the right kind of man will ever notice. And when you do notice them, when you treat those places with care instead of control, with presence instead of pressure, she'll remember you, not just for how you made her feel, but for what you saw in her that others never did. She'll never say it out loud, but once she feels that kind of recognition, she won't let it go. Because in a world that keeps asking her to be tough, you'll be the one person who gave her permission to just be real. And that, to her, is unforgettable. She craves emotional safety, not just attention. She's heard it all before. Sweet words, big promises, charming lines that sound good in the moment, but vanish the next day. Compliments don't impress her anymore, not because she doesn't appreciate them, but because she's learned they often come with expectations, not sincerity. What she truly wants is something deeper, something safer, a place where she can exhale without fear of being misunderstood. Emotional safety is her quiet craving. She's carried burdens on her own for years, because she had to, not because she wanted to. She's used to being the strong one, the one who keeps it all together. But deep down, she's tired. She wants a space where she doesn't have to be perfect, where she doesn't have to hide how she feels, where she doesn't have to shrink herself to keep the peace. That kind of space isn't built by words, it's built by presence. When you look her in the eyes and actually listen, not just to her words, but to the pauses between them, you create that space. When you let her speak without interrupting, without rushing to fix her, without making it about you, you become the kind of man she didn't even know she needed. Most men hear her, but very few truly listen. And that's the difference. Because when she feels safe with you, really safe, walls she didn't even know she built start to fall. She becomes softer, more open, more trusting. Not because you forced her to change, but because your calm made her feel like she didn't have to protect herself anymore. Emotional safety isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It's in the way you sit quietly while she talks. It's in how you hold space for her without pushing. It's in how you stay, even when she's not at her best. When she finds that in you, she'll go places with you emotionally that no one else has reached. Because to a woman who has spent years protecting herself, safety isn't just a want, it's everything. 2. She's tired of games. She wants clarity. She's not interested in guessing. Not anymore. She's played that game before, the one where words mean one thing but actions say another. Where one day she's everything to you, and the next she's wondering if she imagined the connection. That kind of emotional chaos. She's exhausted from it. At this point in her life, she doesn't want fireworks that burn out. She wants a steady flame. She's not chasing butterflies anymore. She's chasing peace. She wants to know what you really feel, what you really want, and where this is really going. That doesn't mean she's clingy. It means she's mature enough to stop wasting time. If you like her, say it. Don't leave her decoding your silence. If you value her, prove it. Don't disappear and expect her to understand. If you want something real, be real. Don't make her feel like she's walking on eggshells just to keep you around. Clarity is what she craves. Not control, not promises, but honesty without drama. That's why Stoic men stand out to her. They don't manipulate. They don't play hot and cold. They're calm, clear, and consistent. They say what they mean, and they back it up with action. They don't need to chase her to win her, because their energy alone speaks volumes. And that kind of clarity, that's rare. That's what makes her relax. That's what makes her trust. That's what makes her stay. Because when a woman has been through enough confusion, the man who brings certainty becomes unforgettable. 3. She misses being chosen for who she is, not who she was. She doesn't talk about it much. She carries it quietly, like most things. But deep inside, there's a part of her that wonders if people only remember who she used to be. If they only saw her when she was younger, when the attention was easier, when her value seemed tied to how she looked, how she moved, how many heads she could turn. But time has passed, life has happened, and with it, she's changed. Not in a bad way, not in a lesser way, but in a deeper, richer, more meaningful way. She's not trying to rewind the clock. She's not looking to relive her 20s or be the center of every room. What she wants now is different, more sacred, more rare. She wants to feel chosen. Chosen for who she is now, not for a highlight version of her past, not for a memory, not for a fantasy. She wants someone who sees the woman she has become, the one who's been through heartbreak and didn't let it make her bitter, the one who's carried grief and still found a way to smile, the one who's been overlooked, underestimated, taken for granted, and yet still walks into every new chapter with grace. That's what makes her powerful. And yet, even the strongest woman wants to feel wanted, not needed out of convenience, not noticed out of politeness, wanted for her presence, for her mind, for the fire that still lives quietly beneath everything she's been through. She's tired of being seen as a phase, or once was. She's tired of being measured against her younger self, as if beauty or worth has an expiration date. She's still beautiful, but in a different way now. She's beautiful because of how she thinks, because of how deeply she feels, because of how gently she carries others, even when she's tired herself. And here's what most people miss. They look at her and see maturity. They see strength and assume she doesn't need tenderness anymore. They think she's too far along in life to care about being chosen. But they're wrong, because deep down, she still aches for someone to choose her on purpose. To say, I see who you are now, and it's enough. In fact, it's everything. She notices when someone really looks at her. Not a glance, not a once-over, but when someone looks at her like they're discovering something rare, like they see her. She notices when someone pays attention to the details, the way her voice softens when she talks about something she loves, the way she bites her lip when she's thinking, the way she gives more than she gets and rarely asks for anything in return. That kind of noticing, it heals something in her, because it means she's not invisible. It means she doesn't have to compete. It means she's still enough, even with the years, even with the scars. And when a man sees her like that, not as a memory, not as someone he wishes was younger, not as someone he wants to change, but as someone who is exactly where she's meant to be, that moment is everything. It's the moment she breathes easier. It's the moment the walls come down. It's the moment she feels safe to be fully, unapologetically herself. Because being chosen now as she is, not for who she was, but for who she's become, that's not just what she wants, that's what she needs. And when you give her that, she won't forget you. She won't let herself. Fourth, her true weakness? Presence. She's been given flowers she didn't ask for. She's been taken to dinners that felt more like performances than connection. She's heard the practiced compliments, watched the showy gestures, and smiled politely through moments that looked good on the outside, but felt empty on the inside. At this point in her life, she knows the difference between real and rehearsed. And what touches her now has nothing to do with status, money, or image. What reaches her is something rare, something quiet, something almost invisible to the untrained eye. Presence. Not just being in the same room as her, but actually being there. Your mind, your attention, your energy, all of it, with her. She notices the difference. When you say you're listening, but you keep glancing at your phone. When you ask how her day was, but your eyes drift while she answers. When you sit across from her, but feel miles away. It doesn't seem like a big deal to most men, but to her, it says everything. Because presence tells her whether she matters. It tells her whether she's worth your full attention or just a small slice of it. It tells her whether you're here to connect or just to pass time. She doesn't need you to entertain her. She doesn't expect you to have all the right words. But when she speaks and you truly listen, not waiting to talk, not scanning for what to say next, but just listening, she feels something shift inside her. She feels important again, not because you said it, but because you showed it. That kind of attention is rare. Most people talk, few truly hear. Most people look, few actually see. But when you do see her, when you notice the way her eyes drop when she's unsure, the slight catch in her breath when something moves her, the quiet strength in how she chooses her words, she feels something she doesn't often feel. Safe. Not physically safe. Emotionally safe. Safe to be unguarded. Safe to be imperfect. Safe to let you in past the polished exterior she spent years building. That's why your presence matters more than any gift you could buy her. Because presence is the one thing you can't fake. It's not flashy, but it's powerful. It's not loud, but it's unforgettable. When she senses that you're fully there with her, without distraction, without rushing, without trying to move the moment along, she gives you something back. Not just her time, not just her attention. She gives you access to thoughts she usually keeps to herself, to feelings she rarely shares, to dreams and doubts and memories she's never put into words. And not because she owes it to you, but because she feels seen. And when a woman feels seen, not just looked at, but deeply recognized, she unlocks. Presence doesn't demand. It invites. It says, I'm not here to fix you or figure you out. I'm just here, with you. And that simple, steady, undistracted being with. That's her weakness. That's her craving. That's the thing most men walk right past, chasing louder things. But if you can give her that, if you can be the one who stays still when everyone else is scrolling, the one who leans in when everyone else pulls away, you won't just get her attention, you'll earn her trust. And with it, something far more powerful than attraction. You'll reach her in a way that gifts, charm, or even desire never could. Because presence doesn't just make her feel wanted, it makes her feel worthy. And once she feels that, she won't want to be anywhere else. 5. She wants a man who doesn't flinch. She's lived through storms that most people never saw. She's smiled through pain, stayed quiet through chaos, and held herself together in rooms where no one even noticed she was falling apart. She's had to be strong when it was the last thing she felt. She's had to keep going when every part of her wanted to stop. And because of that, she watches everything. Not to judge you, but to protect herself. She watches how you respond when things go wrong, when a conversation gets tense, when she's quiet for too long, when her emotions get heavy or her past rises to the surface. She notices if you pull away, if you shut down, if you try to fix her, dismiss her, or change the subject because her depth makes you uncomfortable. She's not looking for someone who never gets shaken. She's not expecting perfection. She knows life is messy. What she's looking for is steadiness. Because she's lived in enough chaos. She's dealt with men who exploded over little things, men who got cold when they didn't know what to say, men who disappeared when the connection got too real. So now, what touches her deeply isn't a smooth talker. It's a man who can sit in silence without needing to fix it. A man who can hold space for her emotion without making it about himself. A man who can listen to her past without flinching, because his presence says, "I'm still here." That kind of energy, that kind of emotional stillness. It doesn't look like strength from the outside, but to her, it's everything. Because it says, "You don't scare me. Your depth doesn't push me away. Your pain doesn't make me uncomfortable." It's not just about how calm you act. It's about the energy behind that calm. It's about whether your silence feels like punishment or protection, whether your stillness feels like distance or safety. And when she senses that your quiet is grounded, not cold, that your strength is patient, not passive, she begins to breathe easier. Your steadiness becomes something she trusts, not just in moments of joy, but in moments of conflict, vulnerability, and fear. It becomes her anchor, because she knows that if you don't flinch when she shows you the rawest parts of herself, then maybe, just maybe, she can finally let someone in. That's what makes the Stoic man so rare. You don't chase her. You don't try to solve her. You just stay present, no matter what shows up in the moment. And when she realizes you're not trying to escape, fix, or control her emotion, that you're simply there, solid, calm, unshaken, something deep inside her begins to trust, not just your words, your energy, your consistency, your unshakable presence when she needs it most. Because she's not looking for a hero. She's looking for a man who can hold space without falling apart. And when she finds that in you, she'll open in ways she's never allowed herself to before. Not because you solved her problems, but because you didn't run from them. And that quiet strength, that deep emotional steadiness, it's the kind of power that doesn't demand her attention. It earns her devotion. 6. She yearns for depth, not perfection. She's not impressed by perfection anymore. She's not looking for the man who always knows the right thing to say, who looks flawless in every photo, who never admits to fear or failure. She's lived long enough to know that most of what shines on the surface is often covering something hollow underneath. And she's tired of shallow connections that feel like performances. What moves her now is depth. The kind of depth that doesn't come from image or confidence, but from truth. Truth about who you are beneath the surface. Truth about what you've lived through, what you've learned, and what you're still figuring out. She doesn't want you to be a perfect man. She wants you to be an honest one. Someone who doesn't flinch when he talks about his past. Someone who can say, "I'm still growing," without shame. Someone who doesn't hide his vulnerability behind distraction, sarcasm, or silence. Because when you bring her into your truth, your real thoughts, your real fears, your real dreams, she doesn't see weakness. She sees courage. She sees substance. She sees something that feels real in a world where so many people are just pretending. Older women are done with surface-level charm. They've sat across from enough men who talk a lot but say nothing. They've heard all the compliments that don't mean a thing. They've smiled through dates that felt more like auditions than connection. And they've walked away from men who tried to impress them but failed to be authentic. She doesn't want small talk. She wants conversation that leads somewhere. She wants a man who's not afraid to ask deep questions, and even more, a man who's willing to answer them. Not to be dramatic, not to overshare, but to connect, to build something real. And here's the truth. When you show her that kind of depth, you give her permission to stop performing too. She relaxes, she opens up. She starts sharing the parts of her that most people never get to see. Because your honesty creates a safe space. A space where she doesn't have to be put together. A space where she doesn't have to edit her story to be more digestible. A space where her complexity is not too much but welcome. That's what depth does. It creates real connection, and that's what she craves more than anything now. Because she's not looking for someone who has all the right answers. She's looking for someone who asks the right questions, someone who can sit in the silence and not rush to fill it, someone who doesn't flinch when things get real. If you carry that kind of depth, you don't need to compete. You don't need to show off. You don't need to convince her of anything. Your energy will speak before your words do. And it will say, "This is a man who knows himself." And when you know yourself, you give her something powerful. A relationship that's not built on pretending or performing, but on truth, trust, and the kind of emotional intimacy that never fades with time. Because in a world full of men trying to be liked, the one who dares to be real, he's the one she can't forget. 7. Her soul leans toward stillness. She's felt the high of chaotic love, the kind that crashes in like a wave, full of passion and noise, only to disappear just as fast, leaving her more empty than full. She's known what it's like to confuse intensity for connection, to mistake the rush of emotional drama for something meaningful, to stay in places where her nervous system was constantly on edge, mistaking stress for desire, conflict for passion. And for a while, she tolerated it. Because when you're younger, loud love feels exciting. It feels like proof that someone cares. But over time, she realized that chaos isn't connection, that adrenaline isn't intimacy, and that survival mode isn't the same as being cherished. Now, she wants something else, something most people overlook because it's not loud enough to trend or flashy enough to brag about. But to her, it's priceless. She wants peace, not just the absence of conflict, but the presence of calm. The kind of love that doesn't feel like a fight to hold on to. The kind that doesn't rise and fall like a roller coaster. She wants the man whose energy feels like exhaling after holding her breath for too long. Stillness doesn't mean silence. It doesn't mean dull or empty. It means safe. It means stable. It means solid. without needing to dominate the moment. She's not asking for perfection. She still wants to laugh. She still wants spontaneity and adventure and spark. But underneath all of that, what she's craving most is a man who brings ease. Someone who doesn't make her feel like she has to earn love, fight for peace, or constantly prove her worth. She watches how you hold yourself in quiet moments. Do you rush to fill silence? Do you get uncomfortable when there's nothing exciting happening? Do you need noise to feel alive? Because if you do, she won't feel safe there. But if you can sit beside her and just be, not needing to fix anything, not needing to fill the space with words, if you can let the quiet breathe and trust that something meaningful is still happening, you'll speak to her in a way that no loud love ever could. Stillness tells her something powerful, that you're not here to control her, that your peace isn't dependent on her mood, that she can cry or laugh or say nothing at all, and you won't run, that her emotions are safe with you, not something you try to avoid. You become the man who doesn't chase attention, but who commands presence. The man who brings calm without becoming distant. The man who can hold space, not just for her, but with her. And when she feels that energy, something inside her finally settles. It's like finding a place she didn't know she was searching for. A place where she doesn't have to shrink, where she doesn't have to protect, where she doesn't have to explain why she's tired of the noise. She can simply rest, in you, with you, beside you. That kind of connection is deeper than chemistry. It's not just about attraction, it's about alignment. Because her soul no longer wants fireworks, it wants a fireplace. A slow, steady warmth, something she can return to, something that lasts. When you lead with that kind of energy, when your stillness becomes her sanctuary, she won't just want to stay. She'll want to build, not just a moment, but a life, one that feels like home. Stop guessing. Start seeing. Stop looking for the perfect strategy. Stop rehearsing lines in your head, trying to guess what might impress her. Stop thinking love is a performance you can win with flawless timing and well-placed words. It's not. She's not sitting there waiting to be dazzled. She's not grading you on charm or charisma. She's not keeping score of how smooth you sound. What she's really waiting for, what her heart is quietly hoping for, is something far simpler and far more rare. To be seen. And not in the way most men think. Not for how she looks, not for how she speaks, not for the things she's accomplished or the version of her that the world claps for, but the version she hides, the version that gets quiet when she's overwhelmed, the version that still aches from things she's never fully talked about, the version that wonders if anyone will ever really understand her, without trying to fix her, change her, or shrink her. That's why your presence matters more than any plan. Because when you stop guessing and start seeing, everything changes. You see that her silence isn't distance, it's protection. You see that her strength isn't armor, it's survival. You see that the softness in her eyes, the way she pauses before speaking, the way she laughs even when she's tired, those aren't small details, they're doors. She's not asking you to kick them open. She's not asking you to solve her. She's simply asking you to notice, to come close, not with pressure but with patience, to meet her in the quiet without needing to make noise, to sit with her truth without rushing to respond. Because most men, they chase the surface, they chase bodies, they chase approval, validation, performance. But the Stoic man, he doesn't need the spotlight. He doesn't need to impress. He doesn't flinch in silence. He just sees. He listens. He stays. And that kind of still, grounded presence, That's what reaches her in the places she thought no one would ever get close to. When you stop trying to control the moment and just be there, she feels it. She may not say it right away, but trust me, her soul knows. Because being fully seen is a rare experience. And when you give that to her, not by trying harder, but by showing up more honestly, you don't just stand out, you stay in her memory. She may not remember every word you said, but she'll remember how you made her feel safe, heard, understood, seen. And when a woman feels that kind of emotional recognition, she doesn't let it go. Not because she's chasing you, but because she's chasing the feeling you gave her. Not the version of her that others wanted, not the image the world expected, but the woman she truly is. So stop performing, stop decoding, stop chasing what doesn't matter. Start seeing, and let her meet you, not through effort, but through energy. Because the moment you do that, you'll stop being one of many and start being the one she can't forget.